Hi, this is Mashnu, and I have here one of my own games again. I played this game last Friday, and it was played during a small tournament that I'm playing in. It's a tournament where they make groups of 4 players, and we play an all-play-all system. So there are 3 rounds, and the first round was last Friday. This evening is the second round, and next Friday will be the last round. And I was playing black here in the first round, and my opponent opened with e4, and I didn't want to play the period defense this time. I'm playing the French defense, and inspired by the videos of King's Crusher, I'm trying this French defense now. d4, d5, now e5. That's the advanced variation, and I continued with c5 here. He plays c3, knight c6, knight f3, queen to b6. So the idea for black is to put pressure on the pawn on d4, because that can become a weak pawn, and the other idea of queen to b6 is to prevent white from playing bishop to e3, because the b2 pawn will be undefended then. He played bishop to e2, I played bishop to d7, castle. Now I took on d4, he took back, and I played my knight from g8 to e7. And there are 2 options after this for black. One is to move this knight to f5 to have even more pressure on d4. And another idea that is seen sometimes is that this knight goes to g6, but the most popular is to continue with the knight to f5. So that's what I did in the game. My opponent played here knight to a3, so this knight is going to c2 to defend the d4 pawn. So as you can see, this variation is very positional, very strategic. It's all about this d4 pawn. Will black be able to attack it, or will white be able to defend it and start a counterattack? Knight to c2, and here I played bishop to e7. My opponent thought here for a long time, and he played b3. After the game, he told me that he wasn't sure about what plan to start here. He was thinking about preparing b4 by playing a3 now here. But the thing is that if he plays a3, I can play a5 and stop b4 forever, and the b3 square becomes a bit weak. So that's why he decided to play here b3, with the idea of placing his bishop on b2, defending the d4 pawn. And now I made actually a big mistake. In a few moves before this position, I was considering g4 by white to chase away my knight from f5, and that's why actually I placed my bishop on e7, because I thought if he plays g4 at some point, I can then play my knight to h4, then it will be defended by my bishop, so I don't need to retreat this knight to h6. And somehow I forgot about this idea right now, and I played f6. This is a mistake, because here white could have played g4, and the correct move here is of course to play castle kingside, and after this playing f6. In the game I played f6, and my opponent didn't play g4. Actually g4 would have been very good for him, because now my knight cannot go to h4, so I have to go to h6, and now there is a beautiful move for white, not taking on h6 with the bishop, no, taking on f6, e takes f6, attacking my bishop, and I cannot retake with the g pawn, because then my knight on h6 will fall. So bishop takes f6 is more or less forced, and then g5 follows, winning a piece. So I have to allow this, and then there is not enough compensation for the piece that I've lost. So I was fortunate that my opponent didn't play g4, but he played automatically his own plan, continued with his own plan, bishop b2. Now I castled, and he played now queen to d2. Now g4 is less strong, because then knight to h6, and if he takes now on f6, I can take with the pawn, because this bishop is not longer on this diagonal here. And then later, for example, after queen to d2, I can bring my knight to f7, and it's alright. I mean, I don't need to really be afraid of this weakness here around my king, because my king can later go to h8 and then rook to g8, and using this half-open g file. So g4 is not a big threat here. He played queen to d2. Now I took on e5. He took back with the pawn, and I played bishop to c5. And at this point I was happy with my position. I did look here at the possibility that he plays g4 now, and there is an interesting variation, and that is that I can play knight to h4 here anyway, because the f2 pawn is under attack. So if he takes here on h4, then my plan was to take on f2 with the bishop and then recapture the knight. Now in the game he played here bishop to a3. So he wants to trade this dark square bishops, and I have no choice because my bishop is pinned. So I took on a3, he took back, I played queen to b4 here. He took on b4, knight takes b4, knight to b5 now. This knight is looking at d6, so we can say that white is planning to play g4 to chase away my knight from f5, and then place his own knight on d6. So what I did is I took here on b5, bishop takes b5. I mean, it's my light square bishop anyways, it's my bad bishop, let's say, that I'm trading, so I didn't mind that. And then I thought here that I could gain advantage by playing knight to c2. That's what I did, but in fact it is a mistake. It's I only considered the answer rook to c1, rook a to c1. That's the most natural move. It is actually what my opponent played, rook a to c1, and then I continue with knight to d4, attacking the bishop on b5. But in fact, the better move here for white is to play rook a to d1, because then the square d4 is not longer available for my knight. So I could have well, not really big trouble, but my own plan would have been wouldn't succeed here. In the game, rook a to c1 was played, and this knight was traded, and then he went with his bishop to d3. Notice that white cannot play now bishop to d7, because then I have a check here on e2, and then the rook falls. So this bishop is forced to go back. It goes to d3. I played rook a to c8, and my opponent played rook f to d1, and he offered me a draw here. I thought for quite a long time here about possibilities to trade rooks, and then try to use my knight to attack the e5 pawn, but I didn't find anything, any concrete idea to gain advantage, and the position is totally equal. What I was thinking about, I accepted the draw offer here, by the way, but I thought about this variation, taking here, so temporarily giving away this c file, but now playing knight to c6, closing the c file and attacking the pawn on e5. But then if the rook goes back here, there is not really something for me. It's an equal ending, because this pawn here, this passed pawn that I have on e5, it's very difficult to advance it, because white has control over the light squares. So imagine this king from g1 going to f1 and to e2, then this square d3 is totally in hands of of white. So I didn't see any possibility of continuing this and gaining advantage. So I was happy with the draw, and in this first game of my life that I tried the French defense. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time on YouTube. Leave your comments, please. Alright, bye bye.